I should have listened to my grandmother. She told me the night before I left for Belgrade that some things aren't meant to be captured on camera. But I was 26, cocky, and convinced that TikTok fame was just one viral video away. The locals called her Plesachika, the dancer. Every hostel owner, every bartender, every taxi driver had a different version of the story, but they all agreed on one thing. If you see her dancing in the streets after midnight, don't film her. Just walk away. I'd been in Serbia for 3 days, chasing urban legends for my horror travel channel. And this was exactly the kind of content I needed. It was a Tuesday night when I found her, or maybe she found me. I'd been bar hopping in Dorachol, the old part of Belgrade, when I decided to cut through a narrow side street around 1:30 a.m. The cobblestones were slick with recent rain, and the street lights barely worked, flickering every few seconds like dying fireflies. That's when I heard the music, not from a bar or an apartment. It was coming from the street itself, tinny and distorted, like it was playing through a broken speaker. Some old Serbian folk song I didn't recognize. And there she was, in the middle of the street, dancing. My wife thought I was losing my mind. Hell, I thought I was losing my mind. But you don't forget something like that, you know? You don't forget the way someone moves when they shouldn't be able to move that way at all. It started with my business partner, Marco. He's Serbian, moved to Chicago 15 years ago, and we'd been running a contracting company together for the past 6 years. Good guy, solid. Not the type to mess around or tell tall tales, which is why it bothered me so much when he kept bringing up this story about Plesachika every time we had drinks. It's not just a legend, Tom, he'd say, nursing his rakija. My cousin saw her in Novi Sad, my uncle in Niš. She moves from city to city, always the same white dress, always dancing, always after midnight. I'd nod along, humoring him, figuring it was just cultural folklore. Every country has their boogeyman stories, right? Then Marco's mother died, and he had to fly back to Belgrade for 2 weeks. Before he left, he came to my apartment. I lived in a third-floor walk-up in Wicker Park, and he looked nervous. I'd never seen him nervous. Tom, I need to tell you something, he said, standing in my doorway, like he wasn't sure he wanted to come in. When I'm gone, if you see a woman dancing outside in the street late at night, don't watch her. Close your curtains. Don't acknowledge her. Marco, what the hell are you talking about? He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo of an old woman. His mother, I assumed. Sweet-looking lady. Then he swiped to the next photo, and my blood went cold. It was the same funeral photo, but in the background, barely visible near a tree, was a figure in white. Even in the blurry image, you could tell she was moving, dancing, even though it was a still photograph. Look, I'm not the kind of guy who chases ghost stories or urban legends. I'm a logistics coordinator for a shipping company. I deal in facts, spreadsheets, and delivery schedules. But what happened to me in that alley 3 weeks ago has completely destroyed any skepticism I had about the supernatural. I was in Belgrade for a regional conference, boring corporate stuff, lots of PowerPoint presentations, and networking lunches. The conference organizers put us up in a hotel near Skadarlia, the old Bohemian quarter, and after 2 days of meetings, I needed to blow off some steam. A few colleagues wanted to check out the nightlife, and I tagged along. We hit a few bars, had a few drinks. Nothing crazy. Around midnight, most of the group called it a night, but I was restless. Jet lag had my internal clock all messed up, and the rakija I'd been drinking had me feeling invincible and stupid in equal measure. So when everyone else headed back to the hotel, I decided to walk around a bit more. The streets were mostly empty, just a few scattered groups of people heading home or looking for after-hours spots. I was wandering without any real direction, taking photos of old buildings and cobblestone streets, when I heard it, music drifting from somewhere nearby. It was hauntingly beautiful, this accordion melody that sounded vintage, like something from an old film. And beneath it, a woman's voice singing in Serbian. I'm a sucker for live music, always have been. I figured I'd stumbled onto some kind of underground bar or speakeasy, maybe catch a local band. The music seemed to be coming from a narrow alley between two buildings, barely wide enough for two people to walk side by side. The entrance was dark, lit only by the ambient glow from the street behind me. I should mention that I'd had just enough to drink to think following mysterious music down a dark alley in a foreign city was a good idea. Not proud of it, but there it is. The alley stretched back about 50 feet before taking a sharp left turn. The music got louder as I walked, echoing off the closed stone walls. About halfway down, I noticed there weren't any doors, no windows, no obvious source for the music. That should have been my first warning, but I kept going, phone in hand, using the flashlight to watch my step on the uneven ground. When I rounded that corner, the alley opened into a small courtyard, maybe 20 feet across. Old buildings rose up on all sides, their windows dark and empty. A single flickering bulb hung from a wire overhead, swaying slightly even though there was no breeze. And there, in the center of the courtyard, she was dancing. The music was coming from an old cassette player sitting on the ground near her feet, its speaker crackling and distorting the melody. She wore what looked like a wedding dress that had been white once but was now gray with age and filth. Her feet were bare, moving across the dirty ground in this flowing, hypnotic pattern. Her hair covered her face, long and black and tangled. I stopped at the entrance to the courtyard, suddenly very aware that I was alone, potentially drunk, and way off the tourist path. But I couldn't look away. The way she moved was mesmerizing, fluid, and precise, like she was following choreography she'd performed 1,000 times. Her arms swept through the air in graceful arcs, her body swayed and spun, and despite the creepy setting, there was something genuinely beautiful about it. I started recording on my phone, just a few seconds of video for the Instagram story, proof I'd seen some authentic local culture or whatever. Through my phone screen, I watched her dance for maybe 10 seconds. Then she stopped. Not gradually. She just froze mid-movement, one arm extended toward me, head still bowed so I couldn't see her face. The music kept playing, that accordion and singing, but she was perfectly still. I lowered my phone, suddenly feeling very cold despite the warm night air. That's when she spoke. Dobar veče, Michael. My name. She said my name, in perfect English with just a slight accent. And I had not told anyone my name in that alley because there was no one else there. My blood went ice cold. How do you... I started to ask, but my voice came out as barely a whisper. She began moving again, but differently now, not dancing, walking toward me. Slow, measured steps. Her bare feet making no sound on the ground. She was still about 15 feet away, but closing the distance steadily. I took a step backward, back toward the alley entrance. You followed the music, she said, her voice oddly melodic, almost sing-song. Everyone follows the music eventually. Some because they're curious, some because they're sad, some because they're lonely. She tilted her head, and I still couldn't see her face through that curtain of hair. "Why did you follow it, Michael?" I didn't answer, couldn't answer. My throat had closed up completely. I took another step back, and she took another step forward, matching my pace exactly. "I've been waiting," she continued, and now she was 10 feet away. "Not for you specifically, just for someone. It gets lonely, dancing alone every night. Don't you think it would be nicer with a partner?" That's when she lifted her head. The hair fell back from her face, and I saw her eyes. They were wrong. Not just strange or unusual, wrong. Too large, too dark, reflecting the flickering light in a way that human eyes don't. And her smile. God, her smile was the worst part. Too wide, showing too many teeth, stretching her face in a way that made me think of a stretched canvas. "Dance with me, Michael," she whispered, but her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. The walls, the ground, the air itself. She extended her hand toward me, fingers unnaturally long and pale. I ran, just turned and sprinted back down that alley as fast as I could, my dress shoes slipping on the uneven stones. Behind me, I heard her, laughing, not mean or angry, but delighted, like we were playing a game. The music got louder, that accordion screaming now, and I could hear her footsteps following me. Fast, too fast. I burst out of the alley onto the street and didn't stop running until I reached a main road with traffic and lights and normal people. I flagged down a taxi and made him drive me straight to the hotel. Cost be damned. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get my keycard into the door slot. That should have been the end of it. I run a YouTube channel that debunks viral horror videos. It's not huge, maybe 80,000 subscribers, but it pays the bills, and I get a sick satisfaction from exposing fake paranormal content. You know the type, grainy footage of ghosts that are obviously just sheets on fishing line, or demons that are clearly just editing effects. I've built my reputation on being the guy who calls bullshit. So when my Discord community started spamming me with links to this video of the Serbian dancing lady, I rolled my eyes. Another creepypasta trying to go viral. The video had been making rounds on Reddit and TikTok for about a week, always with the same warning. Don't zoom in on her face, or watch what happens at 047. Classic engagement bait. The footage itself was pretty standard creepy material. Grainy night vision camera. Looks like a security cam or doorbell camera. Shows a narrow European street, empty except for this figure in white dancing under a streetlight. Her movements were jerky, unsettling, like bad stop-motion animation. The video was only 53 seconds long and had that compressed, re-uploaded quality that made it hard to see details. I downloaded it Thursday night, planning to break it down for my next video. My analysis setup is pretty simple. A good monitor, video editing software that lets me slow down footage and enhance resolution, and a decent eye for spotting effects and editing tricks. I figured I'd have this one solved in 20 minutes tops. I started by scrubbing through frame by frame. Right away, I noticed inconsistencies in the shadows that suggested composite layering. Someone had probably filmed a friend in a costume, then edited them into security footage. amateur hour stuff. But my viewers loved it when I showed the exact frames where hoaxers messed up, so I kept digging. At the 30-second mark, I paused and zoomed in on the figure. My software lets me enhance pixelated images pretty well, and I wanted to get a clear shot of the costume details to show it was obviously just fabric and makeup. I zoomed to 400%, focusing on where her face should be under all that hair. That's when things got weird. As the image sharpened, I realized her head was tilted at an angle that let me see beneath the hair, and her eyes. They weren't looking at the camera. They were looking up, directly up, at an angle that would put her line of sight exactly where I was sitting if the geometry made any sense, which it didn't. But my stomach dropped anyway. I zoomed out and tried a different frame. Same thing. Every angle, every moment I paused. If I could see any part of her face through the hair, her eyes were angled toward me, not toward the camera, toward me, following the position I'd be in while watching. Okay, that's actually clever, I muttered, trying to rationalize it. Some kind of optical illusion built into the footage, designed to freak out anyone who analyzed it too closely. Props to whoever made this. They'd done their homework on messing with debunkers. I zoomed in closer to 800% magnification. The image was pixelated now, breaking down into blocks of color. But I could still make out her eyes in the noise. They were too detailed, too sharp. Everything else degraded into pixels, but her eyes stayed clear, and they were definitely looking at me. My monitor flickered. Just once, barely noticeable. Probably a power fluctuation. But when it stabilized, the video was different. The dancer had moved, not to a different timestamp. I was still paused at 0:34, but her position had shifted. She was closer to the camera now, even though I hadn't scrubbed forward. I checked my editing timeline. Still paused, still the same frame. But she was definitely closer now, taking up more of the screen, and her face was tilted further up, eyes still locked on that same impossible angle. What the hell? I breathed and reached for my mouse to close the program. That's when my monitor flickered again. When it came back, she filled the entire screen. Just her face, hair parted, those eyes staring directly at me through what had to be a dozen layers of digital compression and my monitor's LCD display. And she smiled. My computer crashed. Complete hard shutdown. No warning. Just black screen and silence. I sat there in the dark. My room lights were off because I always edit in the dark, with my heart hammering. The monitor stayed black, but I could see a faint reflection on the screen, my face, and behind me, barely visible in the dark room, something white. I spun around. Nothing. Just my empty bedroom, door closed, window shut. I turned back to my monitor and hit the power button. Nothing happened. Dead. Completely dead. My tower wouldn't boot either. $3,000 worth of custom editing rig, just bricked. That was 6 hours ago. I'm writing this on my phone, sitting in my car outside a 24-hour diner, because I can't go back to my apartment. Because when I tried to leave, when I opened my bedroom door, I heard music, that same folk song from the video, playing from somewhere inside my apartment. And I heard footsteps, coming from my computer room. Slow, deliberate steps, even though my computer was dead and the video wasn't playing. The footage is still in my Discord. People keep tagging me, asking when the debunk video is coming. They want to know what the trick is, how it's done. But I can't tell them. Because it's not a trick. Whatever that video is, whatever she is, the warning was real. Don't zoom in, don't look too close, because once you do, Once you really see her, she can see you too. And now she knows where I live.